Okay. Hi, TL. How are you?
Fine, Douglas. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. So, let's see. Criminal defense attorney in Oakland, California. How long you been doing that?
I've been at it for about 20 years.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you've seen some interesting cases. Does one case stick in your mind? I mean, you don't have to give the specific details, but has there been one case in that long career that plagues you, haunts you, that you haven't forgotten about yet?
Um, there have been several. One that comes to mind, and it's probably sort of the nadir of my career in the courtroom, occurred one day in the middle of a long trial where the defendant was he was very challenging. He had mental issues. And anyway, one day in front of the jury, he snuck in a carton of milk, and he was constantly standing before the judge, screaming that he didn't trust me, his lawyer. Well, this time he did it, and he emptied the carton of milk on my head.
Oh, God.
Uh, yeah, and I lost my temper and called him some not so nice words in front of the jury. So it was just a complete disaster. So I don't know what, I guess I know why that sticks out in my mind, but I wish I had a better memory.
Uh, did he change counsel after that, or did you have to still represent him?
No, I, as his counsel, I moved for a mistrial because I felt that the jury couldn't be fair at that point. Um, but the judge, we had a little hearing, and the consensus was that the jury probably hadn't heard my choice words for him, and so I mean the reality is that the judge was not going to stop the trial. We'd been at it for about a month and a half, and yeah, so no, I remained in to the bitter end.
Do you think this guy was actually mentally unfit to stand trial, or was he just playing games to try to get that ruling?
Very perceptive, the latter for sure. He definitely, I mean, I think you have to be um, a little off to try that ploy. But yeah, I think the judge concluded on multiple occasions that he was not being himself on purpose.
In order to actually pull that off, you got to be really sane, I would think, in order to convince people that you're not. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do, and even then, it's difficult, right? Because the alienists and the psychologists who make those evaluations, it's not their first rodeo, so they've seen these attempts before, and the diagnosis that the defendant is malingering to achieve a certain legal result is pretty common.
You know what's interesting about that is that the criteria for, now I'm not an expert and correct me if I'm wrong, but the criteria for somebody who is unfit to stand trial is basically in the idea of that they did not know what they did was wrong. Is that basically it?
So there's two standards. One is addresses their mindset, at the time they committed the crime, and that's the insanity defense that you have articulated. But as far as whether they're fit to stand trial at the time of the trial, um, that's a very difficult standard. In other words, you have to be pretty out there. The standard is essentially you're fit to stand trial unless you really don't know what's happening. You think the judge is like a court jester, and you think that your attorney is the postman or something. So unless you're completely loopy, to use a non-legal term, then you're probably going to be fit to stand trial.
Oh, so it's two different criterias. It's two different categories then.
Right.
The insanity is only considered at the time the crime was committed.
Correct.
And then to stand trial is at the time of the trial. Right, because it could be years later before that ever gets to trial.
That's right. That's right. And the difficult ones, I think, for juries and the results that leave people scratching their heads are ones where someone is insane at the time of the crime, but by the time the trial rolls around, sort of regains their faculties, right? And the jury is faced with this someone who was completely sane, who did this, oftentimes, terribly violent offense, but they are found not guilty by reason of insanity, because at the time they weren't.
Crime of passion, right? Is that typically like the husband walks in on the wife cheating and kills them all? Something like that?
Right.
Yeah.
It is, and that's not a complete defense to murder, but it usually is a reason to convict some of them one of manslaughter rather than murder.
Well, right, because it wouldn't be premeditated because they didn't plan to do it. What is the difference between second degree and third degree then? I'm always a little unclear on that.
Yeah, so in California, there's first and second degree, and the garden variety murder is a second degree murder. But if there's premeditation, if they plan to do it in advance and undertook steps to carry that out, then that's first degree murder.
Is there a time required to consider planning? Like if you planned it 2 minutes before it happened, or 2 days, or 2 weeks, or
No, there's no requirement, and in fact, in the instructions that are read to a jury, they specifically tell the jury that there's no time requirement. You can plan to kill someone. You can formulate the plan within 30 seconds, as long as you have a plan and undertake some steps to carry out the murder. Then you can be convicted of first degree murder.
real vague in some sense, isn't it?
Yes, it's very vague, as is the legal standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. Like who in the world knows what that means, right? It's just kind of you have to be pretty darn sure, I think, is the consensus.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, you've got a book out called Good Looking, and it's your debut book. What? Why did you decide to write? I'm guessing you're, well, looking at you, you're probably my age. Maybe I'm not going to shoot out a number in case I'm way off, but
Thank you.
I'm going to guess that you're not in your early 20s at this point. So,
Right.
why at this point in your life did you decide to take on writing a book?
Yeah, probably the relevant question for me is, why in the world did it take you so long? I mean, I have always loved creative writing, and I like being a lawyer, but I like writing a whole lot more. And there are plenty of opportunities to write in a legal career, but creative writing is really frowned upon, right? After all, the law is the law, and there's precedent and there's citations. And so the law encourages this very sort of turgid, formulaic, boring type of writing. And so when I finally, stopped procrastinating and started to write creatively, it was just this wonderful, wonderful release.
I suppose it's the difference between writing poetry and an owner's manual. It's probably about that different between legal writing and creative, yeah?
That's a great analogy. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm sure as a criminal defense attorney that you've had a lot of information and stories to draw on. Is this story that you wrote anything to do with cases that you've had in the past, or is it something completely different?
No, it is. It's not based on any one case, but certainly characters are in the book are sort of an amalgamation of judges and attorneys that I've run across. The plot takes a little bit from lots of my cases. I'll give you an example of the characters. There was a deputy district attorney that was my opponent in a trial a number of years ago, and he had this annoying habit of rapping his pen on the podium every time he made a point. Isn't it true? Tap tap. It stuck with me because by the end of the trial, I wanted to climb over the counsel table and just strangle this guy. And he was a very effective prosecutor. Anyway, that deputy district attorney, by a different name, and I'm sure he'll probably recognize himself, made it into my debut novel.
Well, that's funny. Well, I hope that guy never plays poker, because it sounds like he would have all kinds of tells if that was one. And he wasn't aware he was doing it, right? He was unconscious of that.
Yeah, I think right up until the time he realized that it was getting under my skin, and then he probably, increased its frequency.
Okay, I'm a lifelong songwriter, and we take everything that we've ever heard, every single song that we've ever heard from the time we were 3 years old, and the more we start to write, the more our individual style emerges from all of the different sounds and styles that we've listened to. We say we put it all in the blender and then see what comes out. And it sounds like you've done the same thing with all of the cases and the people that you have encountered in your life. And now you've got this sort of mishmash of various characters and the story. Is the story the same way, or is it one specific story that you dealt with in your past?
No, the story is very much the same way. I'll give you an example. As a criminal defense attorney, I spend a lot of time out in the Alameda County Jail visiting my clients, and there's a lot of waiting around time there because it just takes a long time for them to get the inmates in the right spots. And I've often wondered, and I don't know why it popped into my head, but I've often wondered about whether it would be possible to switch places during an inmate during one of my attorney visits. Change clothes, and he could escape from jail as the attorney. And I don't know why I thought of that, but that worked its way into the book. And it was, of course, challenging to figure out a way why that would ever happen. But no, it is you're right. Everything went in the blender, and it came out with good looking.
How long has the book been out?
Just since May the 24th, so just a few days.
Oh, like 2 days, yeah?
Yeah.
Any feedback yet? Any reviews? Anybody
Yes.
responding?
So Kirkus Reviews gave me a very nice review before it came out, and then there's also been some customer reviews on Amazon. All positive so far. I love the reviews. The first time I get a negative one, I might have a different opinion. But so far, they're all right on the money.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad to hear that. And it sounds like that you've got probably enough stockpile for a few more books. Do you plan on writing any others?
Yes, absolutely. So the protagonist again is a guy named Joe Turner, and I've got another one in the hopper. So I think I'm planning a series of Joe Turner mysteries. And you're right, I have an endless supply of stories from the courtroom to tell about.
Fodder, I think, is the term, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Actually, the series, that's a very popular format. A lot of the very famous writers, like David Baldacci and people like that, they do series. The series are incredibly popular with people. They want to keep that. The other one, the Tom Cruise movies, Jack Reacher.
Yep.
That series, that was another one. Yeah. Very popular. Well, good.
Yeah, hopefully Joe Turner will be half as well known.
Well, listen, if you can sell it to the to the studios to make it into a feature film, you could be really onto something.
Well, maybe you can write the screenplay. How about that?
Well, that's a possibility. We do have to wrap this up. We are out of time. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Sure. The website is my name, tlbequette.com. Bequette is spelled Bequette. And you can buy the book there, or it's available on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or your favorite bookstore.
Okay, great. And there's links to your social media from your website as well?
Absolutely. Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was nice meeting you, nice talking to you, and best of luck with the book. I hope it does well.